You're on.
We're on. Welcome to our satsang, our first one here at Entelecheacenter. You probably already know me, but if you don't, I'm Dr. Drrusutybarrier. This is my twin flame, Dr. Tricia Seymour.
Welcome. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about non-duality and our experiences of going to oneness.
So what is oneness, Trish?
What is non-duality?
What is non-duality?
That's the question. What's non-duality? Well, non-duality is, if you think about it, if there is a left and a right, that's dualism. If there is an up and a down, that's dualism. That means that there is a balance. There's a good and bad, right and wrong. Anytime you have two things, that's duality.
It is. So that pretty much means life is duality, doesn't it?
It does, actually. Life is pretty much duality. In this picture
In this okay, in this picture.
that we're living in.
Does that mean there's a picture it isn't?
I think so.
Ah. All right. Well, you're right.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm right.
By the way, for those of you watching, you should always tell your wife she's right.
It's good.
That's just oneness, not duality. Anyway, duality. Duality, as Trish said, left, right, up, down, right, wrong. I love you, I don't love you. You're a good person, you're a bad person. We make judgments. Duality is a realm of judgment. It is where we come to practice forgiveness and remembrance of oneness.
If there is a subject and an object, you, me, those people, two things, that's duality. And it appears everywhere we look that there's duality, the us versus them, that's duality.
As a matter of fact, what you said, though, about subject and object, at any point, that simple statement, if I am in a point of a perceiver of something outside of me, this is a marker, we are in duality. If I truly look and am able to say, as in namaste, the God in me sees the God in you, then I am beginning to move beyond duality.
Most of what we do here is duality, right?
Yes. Or no. Take your pick.
So what is non-duality?
Non-duality is simply
Hard to explain.
Yeah, it is.
Hard to explain.
Words really don't do much for non-duality because words, by their very nature, express separation. I have to be speaking to something other than myself. Unless you've got a Bluetooth in and you can just be talking to whatever. They won't even call you crazy then. Non-duality is that realm in which we recognize that we, nor you, exist. I want to say that again. Non-duality is the realm in which we recognize that neither we nor you exist. Only the one mind, the one being, one consciousness of all that is. The unmanifest state is the state of non-duality. That point of pure potential is a state of non-duality.
I heard someone use the analogy once that source, we'll use the word source. People sometimes have issue with God or they have preconceived ideas. So source or being or the creator or however you want to look at that, fell asleep. And we're dreaming, and they're dreaming, and we're the dream. They're dreaming, we're the dream, we're just characters in somebody else's dream. Another analogy that I really like is the video game of life. And that's to say that we're all just avatars. You know, you think about your avatar that you have on your phone, a little picture of you, or the avatar you use on Facebook or social media, a little picture of you that isn't really you, but it's your avatar. Or in a video game. We actually have avatars that play on our behalf, but it's not really who you are. It's only a small speck of who you actually are.
Nor is the game real.
Right. The game is just ones and zeros. It's just a code.
It is.
It's just a code that someone made up. Exactly.
It is. And that's the other thing about duality. And I love the very first statement in a book called A Course in Miracles. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. If there is anything that you can identify that can be threatened, please rest assured it only exists in the game of duality, in the game of life. For me, we were given in this culture this information, almost every single one of us, but in slightly different words than I now choose to use. Hey, come here. Taste of this fruit of the tree of duality. You know, good and evil. You'll be like the gods. Taste of duality. But as soon as you do, you're no longer immortal. You're no longer eternal. You get to die. You've been kicked out of the garden of oneness. We've all heard that in this culture, haven't we? They just said it was a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's not a good and evil. It's duality, folks. So what we're here about is to help you take the steps to awaken from the dream of duality, from the game of duality, to oneness. So what is oneness? What are the feelings that people might associate with oneness?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's one of those things that's very hard to describe. It's an experience where you no longer have a physical form, where you go back to source, where you literally integrate everything about you back to the one that is, back to source. And when you do that, the emotions is mostly what people talk about. You may have heard people who've had near-death experiences talk about going to source or oneness. The Hindus call it samadhi, and that's a level of oneness and connection with the all that is. Buddhists might call it nirvana, but it's connecting to everything. So the emotions that are there when you are in oneness is really just a full body, and again, you don't have a body, full sensation of total peace, full sensation of
unconditional love,
total calm, unconditional love. I mean, just a love beyond what you would even have ever experienced in your duality, in your body, even from a very nurturing parent or a nurturing partner. It's very, very different.
Yes. You've had some experiences
So
of
have
this.
you.
I have.
Why don't you share some of yours? So everybody has different experiences that have had oneness experiences. Not everybody has experienced oneness, but everybody that has experienced oneness does it slightly different because we're all perceived differently. Some people it's very simple, some people it's complicated, then simple. You just have to kind of look, but think about it as we describe some of our own experiences.
I would venture that each and every person on this planet has at one time or another in their incarnation, present incarnation, touched oneness. The first time I realized the first time I touched oneness was when a therapist asked me to remember a time in my life where I felt that everything was perfect, whole, and complete in my life. Now, there may be people who have a very hard time doing this. I did not. So the very first time I can remember simply dissolving, and please hear what I'm saying there, dissolving into oneness. I was probably 7 or 8 years old, possibly younger, in the yard of my grandparents' home on their farm, out under a beautiful lavender tree, spinning, spinning, spinning. And all I felt, and as a kid I loved to spin, I still love to spin, by the way, but just spinning. And in that spin, the whole world dropped away. There was no me. There was only the flow of the movement. The breeze that I felt suddenly went through me, not touching me. The sounds I heard inside of myself, they were no longer out here. There was no out here. There was no in here. There was only now. And that's another one of the great attributes of oneness. Now is where you will find it. You will not find it in your past. You will not find it in your future. You will only find it here and now. Another one, so you're going to hear something from me. For me, nature is the great grace that sends me to oneness every single time. Another time I was driving, it was with my former wife, now deceased. I was driving through a nature preserve in Missouri, somewhere I had never been before. And I'll be honest, I'd been hearing people yelling and voices arguing and all the stuff of humanity, and I can be rather judgmental of humanity. I still work on that every day. But I was in the car, driving down this gravel road, through nature, through ponds, through woods, and as I rolled along, I suddenly realized I was no longer making the car go forward. It had actually come to a stop. I was sitting, looking out across a beautiful meadow. And all of a sudden the meadow was gone. The sounds were gone. It was simply no being. There was no thing there. There was no one to observe. All I felt, and I say, and we have to use words like I felt because we have to describe this, but there really is no description. Was home. Simply home. When I return to oneness, every time I go home, that's how it feels to me. Complete acceptance, complete love, complete peace, and silence. Absolute silence. So those are some of mine. I know yours was slightly different.
Beautiful. Very nice. Thank you. Yeah. And you will see they're all a little bit different for different people and what you're used to and your own experiences. Mm-hmm. For me, I had been studying with a Hindu guru for a while and learning how to meditate and be still and quiet, and also opening up to my senses to intuitiveness and being able to see things and hear things that were beyond the physical. And so a lot was going on at that point. And I all of a sudden knew something weird was about to happen because it actually frightened me. And so what I did was I asked a dear friend of mine to come to my apartment and to sit with me on the floor while I went to whatever was going to happen, because I didn't know if maybe I was going to die. I mean, it felt that frightening.
Transformative.
Yeah, well, at the moment I just thought it was scary. But what took place was we both sat down on the floor, and I closed my eyes, and I saw black. And I saw a tunnel. And I was very fearful to go in the tunnel, but I knew that I needed to. And so I went into the tunnel, and it ended up opening up into like a pathway. And the pathway led to like an old-timey theater like Broadway theater, where you had seats and you had a stage and a beautiful, heavy, heavy velvet curtain up at the stage, and I was the only one in the theater. And so I went into the theater, went down, felt drawn to go to the stage, went down the stage. So you see, for me, it's a visualization that took place. But I physically was there. I went down to the stage, I got up on the stage, and as I got to the stage, the curtain parted or disappeared or was gone. And before me, I saw all the masters that people talk about, from Buddha to Krishna to Jesus to Muhammad to everyone. And they were all standing there and looking at me, and I was just in awe. And I felt drawn to go to the middle of the stage and kneel. And I knelt down, and they made a circle around me. Now it's my turn. And they put their hands on my head and my third eye in a circle. And I heard them say, "We are all one. Separation is an illusion. We're all one. You are one of us. We're all one." And at that point, they said a few more things, a few more comments like that, and then I felt like somebody touched my arm and they were leading me, and they led me to a place that looked like what I had been taught heaven was, with mansions and streets of gold. And I walked into a room that looked like a palatial palace or castle with chandeliers and beautiful furniture, and I was just in awe of this gorgeous place. And they said to me, "Would you like to go farther?" And I thought, I'd always been taught this is the end. There is nothing farther. What do you mean? And they said, if you go through that door, you can go farther. So I said, of course I want to go farther. I want to see what's next. So they led me through the door into a meadow, rolling hills. And in the rolling hills were shapes, like glowing shapes, multitude of glowing shapes. And I looked at them and thought, well, they all look separate. And I turned to my guides and the masters that were with me, and I said, I thought you told me we're all one, that there is no separation. Why do I see all these different beings? Why are they all separate? At that moment, they all merged into one. They all became one unbelievably beautiful bright light. And I felt them lead me into the bright light. In the bright light, I felt unbelievable love, divine love. And in that space, I did not exist. I had no thought. I had no body. I had no cells. I had no mind. I have no idea how long I was in that space, but I was just there. In silence, in love, in unbelievable, again, hard to describe, peace.
The peace that passes understanding.
For a while. Then I heard, it's time to go. You're not done. You have to go back. And I said, no. I said, I am not leaving this place. I have never felt this in my life. And I am not going out. I'm not going back. And I had a really good life, so it's not like I had a bad life. And they said, no, you have to go back. You can't stay. And then they said, but you can come back whenever you want to. And that was when I said, okay, that I would come back. And they led me back to my body, and I noticed as I was leaving the light that it was still within me. That I felt like my chest and body were just glowing and shining. And I knew that I could take it with me, and that I could come back at any time I wanted to. And so I re-entered my body, and I woke back up, and the guy across from me had fallen asleep and had no idea how long it had been, but the energy was so massive, it literally put him to sleep.
It was not me, by the way.
No, it was not you. And from that time, I will say I've never had that full immersion experience to that extent again. But I remember, and I walk every day of my life remembering that we are not separate, that this is the illusion, that that's what's real, that non-duality is the realness, the oneness is what's real, the love is what's real, and what we see played out on the screen is a movie. It's the illusion. And
even more, what we see played out on the screen is our own resistance to love. That's any time we are projecting outward to those people, it's really only showing us our own areas of resistance to love. We are one. Every single moment of eternity, we are one.
And we know it's hard to remember that. Even when you've had these massive experiences, it's very hard to remember that when you see the news and when you see people and when you have someone cut you off in traffic, that it's hard to stay in that space. And I'm not going to say we do every single day of every single moment. And we probably both spend more time in the now. And by the way, now is not a time. It's not like it's a clock number. The now just means being present. And we probably both are more present now because of those experiences. One of the other things I was just going to say is that since that experience, sometimes, and many of you may have had this kind of an experience, where I'm sitting in a chair and maybe we're watching TV or doing something, and all of a sudden I'm asleep, and I'm not really asleep. It's like I feel myself being pulled out of my body. I don't go anywhere. It goes black. But I'm not asleep. But I'm gone. And we'll be sitting watching a show, and I'll give him the remote, or he'll give me the remote, and we'll go, I'm about to be pulled out. And those moments are also reminders of us of oneness. Those moments are, even if we don't feel or see a light or come back feeling love, it could be 5 minutes. We come back feeling so much more peaceful and so much more refreshed. It's amazing.
5 minutes in eternity is eternity.
5 minutes in the game. 5 minutes here in the movie.
Right. But that's also one of the things that you're hear Trish and I talk about more and more is ascension. Right? Everyone wants to go up. They want to get away. Yeah. There is no up or a way to go. The only way to oneness is here.
Right.
And notice where I'm hitting on my body. Right? From here to here is the journey of a lifetime, or lifetimes. It is the longest 18-inch trip you will ever take. When you are here, you are in eternity. When you are in your heart, you are in oneness. You are in non-duality. The heart does not know duality. It simply doesn't sense it. The heart is what children come with. They come and they say, oh, and they love everything. They also stick most of it in their mouth, but you know, that's beside the point. That's how they're getting to know that they might want to be separate from it. But love, that's where we are. That's the essence of oneness, the essence of life. Life is oneness. Duality is death and separation. Get those things very clearly in your mind. I'll also give you another quick hint as we're talking about some of this. And we can go back to talking about our experience of oneness. But any time you can put a label on something, black chair, blue chair, blue chair, black chair, right? Light, fan, floor. Any label you have is duality, right? Conservative, liberal, duality, right? Stay in your heart. Stay in the center of your being. For it is within that space that everything coalesces. Everything coalesces in your heart.
So this is not new information. As I said, the Buddhists, the Hindus, even ancient Christians, everybody, somebody in that path knows this is true, and they've taught it. Advaita Vedanta teaches non-duality and oneness.
A Course in Miracles is really just the Americanized version of Advaita Vedanta.
Rumi.
Rumi, I like that guy. He might have got it.
An ancient sage. Rumi, a quote that we both really love and that you've probably heard before, but I think it's appropriate to repeat it now. It says, "Out beyond ideas of right and wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there. When the souls lie down in the grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. When you get to that field, out beyond the right and wrong, out beyond duality, even the concept of other isn't there. You're one."
Or one.
And Rumi taught that a very long time ago.
At least, 500, 600 years ago. All right. Anything else?
No, I
Maybe an
think that's
endpoint.
it. So we really just wanted to thank you for spending some time with us and, again, getting to know us a little bit better.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue doing these, and each time we'll reference duality versus non-duality. But as Rusty said in the very beginning, you have to now, even when you come back here, even if you know it's not real, you have to still function here.
Mhm.
We still have to eat, we still have to, probably have a job or something like that. And so every one of our talks will be talking about how to bring that feeling inside and live from that space.
And, by the way, it's actually also okay to dive fully into duality and play the game, forgetting that there's oneness at some point.
I think we all do that too.
We all do that. I'd say a lot of us did that over the last few years.
Right. But thank you so much
Yes.
for joining us. Thanks for being here for the talk, and we'll see you later.
And thanks to our great photographer, John Lipinski, for coming in to help tonight.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. Ready?